Steve Sadar reached out to me looking to make a deal on behalf of T.I. and Tiny. And I told Steve Sadar that my clients want justice. So the deal involves Tiny and T.I. turning themselves in, then admitting to the crime that they've committed. Then fine, we got a deal. But if it does not, then
T.I.'s son, King Harris, has been arrested after not appearing in court and some other things connected to his actions.
We have almost never seen a celebrity.
They're calling it one of the darkest twists the Harris family has ever faced. And if even half of what's being whispered online is true, this story is way bigger than a simple jailhouse fight. Because tonight, social media is exploding with claims that King Harris wasn't just involved in some random scuffle behind bars. He was allegedly savagely jumped in what insiders are calling a calculated ambush. Rumors say he was rushed out under heavy guard, barely responsive, while the entire unit went into chaos. And in the middle of that storm, a shocking new angle has fans frozen. A lawyer is now claiming there's talk of a deal on the table, one that allegedly involves T and Tiny themselves. According to these reports, the only way out for King might be for his parents to supposedly turn themselves in and admit to crimes they've long denied. It sounds unreal, it sounds extreme, but that's exactly why the internet can't stop talking. Is this just wild prison gossip gone viral, or is there something much darker playing out behind the scenes? Let's break down what's being said, who's making these claims, and why fans are suddenly terrified for King Harris's life. From the moment the first post hit social media, people say they could feel that something about this story was off. It wasn't just another headline about a celebrity kid getting into trouble. It felt heavier, darker, like everyone was suddenly peeking through a keyhole into a nightmare nobody was prepared for. According to a wave of posts, lives, and voice notes flying around group chats, King Harris didn't just get into a scuffle behind bars. The talk is that he was cornered, rushed, and brutally jumped in a part of the prison where, conveniently, cameras either malfunctioned or somehow didn't catch the full picture. Nobody outside those walls can prove what really went down, but the language people are using online is intense. Words like ambush, setup, and revenge are all over the timeline. The first version of the story started like most viral situations do these days, with a shaky video and a half-whispered voiceover. A man claiming to be connected to someone on the inside said King had been rushed to the infirmary, then moved again under heavier security after his condition was labeled critical. He described a scene where officers were scrambling, inmates were yelling, and King was barely conscious, his face so swollen that some staff didn't recognize him at first glance. None of this has been confirmed by official statements, but that hasn't stopped fans from reacting like it's already fact. Some are praying in the comments, some are cracking jokes, and others are straight up furious that something like this could allegedly happen in such a controlled environment. And then, just as people were trying to process that, another layer dropped. A lawyer, speaking in a video that's now being clipped and reposted everywhere, claimed that someone acting on behalf of T and Tiny reached out to him to make a deal. In his version, he says he told this person very clearly that his clients wanted justice, not a quiet arrangement. The part that really lit the match online is his claim that there's talk of some kind of understanding where T and Tiny would allegedly have to turn themselves in and admit to wrongdoing before anyone even considers easing up on King. He doesn't say it like a confirmed agreement. He says it like a threat hanging in the air. But once that idea was out there, people ran with it like it was the script of a crime drama. Fans who grew up watching the family on reality TV are now stuck in a strange place emotionally. On one hand, they remember King as the loud, funny, out-of-pocket kid on camera who pushed back against his parents and played up his attitude for entertainment. On the other hand, they've watched him lately in clips where he seems determined to prove he's tougher than people think, arguing in cars, going live from questionable spots, talking like he's about to go to war with anyone who doubts him. Now, those same viewers are watching edits of old scenes.
But I can't judge how. the parenting is gone, because everything that we've seen has been stuff that many of us would have said or similar if we saw our children do this. But I will say this.
I really admire his dedication and commitment to the craft, because, you know, I kind of told him, you know, what was wrong about it. Making mistakes. I ain't had no daddy who would pull up and get on my ass anytime. Things I did, you can't get away with.
I know that.
Man,
His face swollen.
Spliced with alleged updates from inside the prison, and the contrast is hitting hard. Comments are full of people saying things like, "We thought it was all jokes, but maybe he was really headed here," or "This is what happens when the internet claps for bad behavior." Inside the fan circles, the arguments are endless. Some people say this is what they warned about, that the energy King was putting out would attract exactly this kind of danger. They talk about old clips where his father is seen telling him straight up that real life does not care that he is the son of a famous artist, that playing tough could end with him behind bars or worse. Those clips are now being replayed with eerie captions like, "He spoke this into existence," or "The warning nobody wanted to hear at the time." Others push back, insisting that no matter what mistakes King has made, nobody deserves to be beaten half to death, and that even in prison, there should be basic levels of protection, especially when the facility knows someone is high profile. Then there is the question that keeps popping up every time this story is discussed. How did it get this far without someone stepping in earlier? People online are pointing to all the small signs they now claim they saw but ignored. Lives where King looked exhausted and hyper at the same time, arguments outside stadiums, viral clips from fast food spots, moments where he seemed desperate to prove that he wasn't just the kid from TV, that he had survived real things, that he could hang with anyone from the streets. Some viewers say it always felt like he was fighting ghosts that nobody could see, trying to outrun the image of a privileged kid in designer clothes. Now, they say those ghosts have allegedly caught up to him in the harshest environment possible. As all this unfolds, the family's every move is being dissected. Fans are watching T's social media stories like they're episodes of a show, trying to read his expressions, counting how often he brings up his son, trying to guess what he means when he talks about sleepless nights and the weight of fatherhood. The same happens with Tiny. Whenever she posts anything, even something completely unrelated, the comments pile up with questions. How is King? Why aren't you speaking out? Are the rumors true? Why does it feel like everyone is quiet all of a sudden? People close to the situation claim the silence is strategic, that the family is being told not to say too much while lawyers work in the background. But in a world where silence is instantly treated like guilt, that gap is being filled with nothing but speculation and fear. What makes this story even more overwhelming for many people is the way old accusations and unresolved issues are being dragged back to the surface. It doesn't matter right now whether those past claims were proven, dismissed, or left hanging. In the court of online opinion, the history around the family is suddenly being woven into this new crisis. Some inmates, according to those who say what's happening inside, allegedly taunt King by bringing up every rumor they've ever heard, using his parents' scandals as weapons. For them, he isn't just another prisoner. He's a symbol of everything they believe is wrong with people who have money, access, and public sympathy, even when controversy follows them. Meanwhile, the idea of a deal has taken on a life of its own. People are arguing over what such an arrangement would even look like. Is it just one lawyer's dramatic way of saying he wants accountability from everyone involved in an older case? Is it a real behind-the-scenes offer being floated to protect King? Or is it simply a negotiation tactic that got blown out of proportion the second it hit the internet? Nobody knows, but that hasn't stopped the theory machine from going full. Some viewers imagine closed-door meetings where numbers are being whispered, favors are being called in, and reputations are being weighed against human safety. Others roll their eyes and say the whole thing sounds too dramatic to be real, insisting that no system would openly tie a young man's safety to the public confession of his parents. Even with all this uncertainty, one thing is clear from the reaction online. People are feeling the human side of this more than usual. It's not just gossip for them. In the comments, you see messages from parents who say they're scared for their own kids, especially sons, who are drawn to risky behavior because they think it looks cool. They talk about how quickly a performance for social media can turn into a real lifestyle that demands proof. There are also messages from people who have done time themselves, saying that if even a fraction of the story is true, King is in a terrifying position, not just because of the attack, but because of what comes after. Surviving something like that can make you a bigger target, not a safer one, especially if people think your family is reaching out to officials or shaking up the system. And through all this, the main thread that keeps pulling everyone back into the story is the same one that started it. The image of a young man who was once seen joking on camera, now lying in a hospital bed. If the rumors are accurate, fighting to recover from injuries that never had to happen. The contrast between those two versions of him is what makes this story stick in people's minds. It feels like a cautionary tale and a tragedy unfolding at the same time, wrapped up in legal drama, family tension, and an online audience that can't stop watching, even when they say they are tired of the chaos. The longer the story sits online, the more versions.
That's the only good thing they posted of me going viral. I'm not on the media's good side. I don't know why, but it ain't.
Steve Sadar reached out to me looking to make a deal on behalf of T.I. and Tiny. And I told Steve Sadar that my clients want justice. So the deal involves Tiny and T.I. turning themselves in and admitting to the crime that they've committed, then fine, we got a deal. But if it does not, then I would prefer to have the investigators do their work and to bring criminal charges against Tiny and T.I.
And the whispers and
of it people start to share. One clip claims the attack happened in a quiet corner near the showers. Another voice note says it went down in a common area where everybody hangs out. A supposed cousin of someone locked up in the same building goes on live and swears that King was warned days earlier that certain people were not feeling his energy and that he needed to move different. Nobody outside can verify who's telling the truth, but every new detail added in these retellings makes the picture darker in people's minds. It's like watching a story grow teeth with every repost. Then there is the lawyer's video, which has become the center of the storm. In the clip, he sits in what looks like a quiet office and calmly explains that someone reached out on behalf of T and Tiny. He doesn't yell, he doesn't scream, but the words he uses have that heavy, loaded feel. He says, they wanted to know if we could make this go away, and then follows it with, I told them my clients want justice, not secret arrangements. It's when he adds that line about T and Tiny allegedly needing to turn themselves in and admit to past wrongs that the chat explodes. Comments flood the screen. No way, this can't be real. They trying to trade parents for a son now, and this is some movie-type mess. Some people believe every word he says. They talk about him like he's the only one brave enough to say out loud what others hint at in private. Others accuse him of chasing attention, using a sensitive situation to build his own name. It turns into a debate on who can be trusted when everyone seems to have a camera in their face and a personal angle. One fan writes under the reposted clip, I don't know what's real anymore, but hearing a lawyer even imply something like that is wild. Another replies, this is why victims stay quiet, because everything becomes content. Meanwhile, older interviews from T start making the rounds again. In one, he talks about how he used to run the streets and how he recognizes that same stubborn fire in his son. He says, I already made my peace with the idea that if he keeps going like this, there's only so much I can do. People are now splicing that audio over photos of King in hospital gowns from years ago, shots of him in expensive outfits, and screenshots of recent mugshots. Under those edits, comments are full of mixed feelings. Some viewers call T honest for admitting he can't control everything. Others say he spoke too much, that putting such harsh predictions on a child publicly only pushes them closer to that path. Inside the family, according to people who claim to know what's going on, emotions are all over the place. One source describes Tiny pacing in a kitchen, phone in hand, arguing softly but intensely with someone who keeps telling her to trust the process. Another says T has barely been home, always either at meetings, on calls, or riding around late at night trying to move pieces people can't see. Again, none of this is confirmed, but that hasn't stopped fans from painting their own mental picture of a household under pressure. Some imagine shouting matches, others picture silent dinners where nobody looks each other in the eye. What really pulls the audience into the emotional core of this situation are the old family clips being paired with the new rumors. There's that scene from a past show where King smiles wide while his parents celebrate a milestone with him.
There's another where he's being playfully scolded for talking back. Now, those lighthearted moments are being re-edited with captions like, "This is the boy they're talking about," and "It's crazy how fast life turns." People who used to laugh at his antics are suddenly writing long comments about how fame, pressure, and pride can twist a childhood into something completely unrecognizable. The conversation has also opened a larger debate about how children of public figures are raised in the spotlight. People on podcasts and commentary channels are asking whether the mix of cameras, money, and public expectations does more harm than anyone wants to admit. One host puts it like this: "You grow up with the world calling you spoiled, soft, privileged, and at the same time, they want you to be real and about it. How do you even process that at 15, 16, 17? Viewers share their own stories of trying to live up to an image, even without cameras, and say they can only imagine how intense that pressure must feel when millions of strangers are watching. Then there are the prison-specific details that keep people glued to every update. Someone claiming to be a former inmate from the same system posts a long thread explaining how high-profile people are often treated. He says they are rarely seen as regular prisoners. They are either tools, trophies, or targets. According to him, if people believe your family can move mountains, you'll always be at risk of someone wanting to test how far that influence really reaches. He doesn't say he knows King personally, but he speaks in a way that makes listeners lean in. "Out there, your name gets you in rooms," he says in one audio clip. "In here, your name might get you put on a list." A lot of the talk centers around the idea that King was too loud for a place built on quiet codes. Commenters repeat alleged quotes from unnamed inmates who supposedly told him to keep his head down, handle his time, and stop acting like he was still on a show. Whether those quotes are real or just internet fiction, they feed the same narrative, that a disconnect between image and environment eventually led to something ugly. People discuss how there's a difference between being confident and being seen as arrogant, and how that line is razor thin in places where survival depends on how others read your energy. Meanwhile, the whispers about a contraband deal gone wrong refuse to die down. Some accounts claim King got caught up in something he didn't fully understand. Others push the idea that he tried to bargain his way out of a bad situation and ended up making it worse. Because no paperwork has
surfaced publicly, it's impossible to know which, if any, of these theories have any truth behind them. But in the absence of official clarity, the most dramatic explanations always travel the fastest. After all, people are drawn to stories where every decision has a hidden consequence and every favor comes with a price. All of this speculation has created a strange, almost surreal space where reality and storytelling mix. On one side, you have a real young man, a real family, and real fear about what might happen next. On the other side, you have viewers who consume the situation like a long-running series, complete with villains, plot twists, and cliffhangers. Some fans admit they feel guilty refreshing for updates, knowing that behind every post is genuine panic. Others say that talking about it, even in dramatic form, keeps attention on the safety of someone who might otherwise be forgotten once the hashtag fades. Behind the scenes, insiders insist that multiple legal teams are now involved, not just for whatever is happening inside the prison, but for the waves of opinions and accusations spilling across the internet. There is talk of defamation warnings, threatened lawsuits, and carefully worded statements being drafted but not yet posted. Some say that this is why so many people who might know more are staying quiet, choosing silence over the risk of saying something that could be held against them later. And yet, that same silence is exactly what gives rumor room to grow. Through it all, the question hangs in the air like a heavy cloud. How much of what we are hearing is close to the truth, and how much is the internet building its own version of events? Nobody can fully answer that right now, but the emotional impact is real, whether every detail is accurate or not. Fans feel like they're watching a human collision between pride, pain, and power play out in slow motion. Some believe this could become the turning point that makes people finally talk about how children raised in public really fare once the cameras stop rolling. Others worry that it will just become another headline people move on from once a new scandal takes its place, leaving a broken family to pick up the pieces in private. As the days pass, the story around King keeps twisting, and every twist seems to pull the Harris family deeper into a place that looks nothing like the glossy image people grew up watching. One blogger claims that someone close to the family described the house as silent and loud at the same time, meaning everybody is talking, arguing, pacing, but no one is saying what really needs to be said out loud. It's all side comments, half-finished sentences, and long, tired sighs. One source paints a picture of Tiny sitting at a long dining table covered in papers and open laptops. There are legal documents, printed emails, old contracts, and blurry screenshots of posts that have been deleted but live on in group chats. She keeps refreshing her phone, scrolling past people who are using her son's name for clicks while she waits for yet another call from yet another lawyer. According to this version, at one point she snaps and says, "Everybody got something to say except the people who were actually there." The room goes quiet for a moment because even if that line wasn't meant for anyone in particular, it hits everyone listening. Then there is Ty, who, if these stories are true, is moving in a different way. People who say they've spoken to him describe a man caught between rage and regret, pacing, making calls, and trying to keep control in a situation where control doesn't really exist. One person claims they overheard him on the phone late at night saying, "I already told him where this road ends. I told him over and over, and now look where we at." The person on the other end of the call stays calm, reminding him that losing focus now will not help, but he cuts them off, saying, "Focus don't matter if they already decided what they want to do to him." The alleged deal hanging over all of this only adds another layer of pressure. The lawyer who first mentioned it hasn't backed down in his later clips. If anything, he's doubled down on his wording. In one follow-up, he calmly repeats that he was approached to find a solution, and that the idea of Ty and Tiny turning themselves in and confessing to past wrongdoing was floated as part of that talk. He says he refused, insisting that what his clients want is accountability, not some quiet trade. Even though he frames everything as his personal perspective, not an official notice, his words are still enough to send shockwaves through fan communities. Commentary channels pick this up and spin it in different directions. Some say this shows there are people in the background who believe the family got away with things in the past and want to use King's vulnerability to force the truth out. Others argue that the whole thing sounds like a game of telephone, where one vague suggestion turns into a full-blown claim that a deal was officially put on the table. Viewers watch these breakdowns and flood the live chats with their own takes. Some type, "This sounds like payback," while others write, "Using a child, even a grown one, to get to the parents is wild if true." Emotions run high whenever someone brings up the idea that King might be paying for more than just his own choices. One fan leaves a long comment under a viral edit saying, "This is what happens when you grow up under a shadow of unresolved accusations and public drama. Even if you didn't do anything, people attach that history to your name." Another person pushes back, saying, "He's grown, he knew what he was doing," and it turns into a whole argument about where responsibility begins and where it ends when your family is famous. The younger siblings are being dragged into the storm too, whether they like it or not. Accounts dedicated to the family repost old photos of them smiling together, with captions like, "The ones who never asked for this," and "Imagine watching your brother's name trend for the worst reasons." Some fans beg people to leave the rest of the kids alone, saying they deserve privacy. Others still tag them, demanding statements, as if they're public officials instead of children trying to process a crisis they never expected to deal with. One of the most heartbreaking parts of the story, at least in the way people are telling it, is the idea that King might have been sending out signals for help long before things went this far. Fans dig up mives where he sounded tired, frustrated, and ready to argue with anyone who questioned him. They remember times he talked about not feeling understood, not wanting to be judged for how he grew up, wanting to prove he was really outside. Back then, people took those comments as regular internet talk, the kind of bravado most young people slip into when they feel watched. Now, those same clips are replayed with heavy music, and viewers write that they wish someone had stepped in more forcefully before everything allegedly spiraled. The public reaction is split down the middle.
Half the timeline is full of people sending prayers, saying things like, "No matter what, nobody deserves to go out like that. I hope he pulls through." The other half treats the whole situation like the final act of a story they've been predicting for years, writing comments such as, "He wanted this life, now he got it," and "You can't play both sides forever." This ruthless split leaves the family feeling like they're under a microscope, judged not just for their parenting choices, but for every clip, caption, and soundbite from the past decade. At the same time, the prison angle keeps getting darker in the retelling. One supposed insider claims that the attack, guards had to force everyone back into their cells, dragging some people away as they shouted and banged on doors. They say King was barely moving. His
Body limped as officers rushed him through the corridor. Another version claims he was awake enough to ask what happened, but got no clear answer before everything went blurry again. Nobody knows which, if any, of these details are real, but they added chilling weight to the story for viewers imagining those moments. Then there's the rumor about the cameras. Many posts insist that surveillance in the area just so happened to cut out or glitch at the exact time of the attack. Officials haven't confirmed any malfunction, but that silence only fuels suspicions. One former staff member from a different facility, speaking anonymously in a podcast, says, "Technology doesn't just fail for fun. If the footage is missing, somebody's going to have to answer for that sooner or later." Again, that's opinion, not evidence, but it feeds into a growing belief that there's more going on than a simple brawl. Friends of the family, both known and unknown, are also being pulled into the narrative. Some are accused of not doing enough. Others are praised for allegedly calling around, checking on King, and trying to keep the parents grounded. One artist who has worked with T before posts a vague message about how being a father in the public eye is a battle people don't understand, and instantly fans connected to the current situation, even though no names are mentioned. Another industry voice says in a live chat, "People love to talk about how they would parent better, but they don't have millions of people judging their every move while their kids make mistakes in front of the whole world." By now, the story is everywhere. People who don't even follow hip-hop closely are resharing clips because the human drama is so intense. They see a father who once called himself a king, now desperately trying to protect a son people say believed he was untouchable. They see a mother who spent years being the soft landing for her family, now being portrayed as the heart of a crisis team, juggling emotions and strategy. They see a young man whose entire life has been lived in front of cameras, now allegedly facing the one stage where cameras can't save you. What makes everything hit even harder is the way fans keep looping back to earlier moments that now feel like warnings. That argument at a sports game, that heated live in a restaurant, that clip where King clashed with his father and shouted that he had been outside in ways people didn't understand. At the time, people laughed, made memes, and moved on. Now, those same moments are being reinterpreted as signs that a storm was already forming, long before any prison walls came into the picture. Through all of this, the question of the supposed turn yourselves in demand lingers in every discussion. Some viewers think it was meant metaphorically, like the lawyer was calling for emotional responsibility. Others insist it was literal, part of a behind-the-scenes pressure play nobody wants to talk about openly. Regardless of what the original intent was, the phrase has taken on a life of its own, turning into a symbol of how tangled the situation has become. Fans are shocked that the conversation has even reached this point, where the safety of one person is being discussed in the same breath as old accusations, unresolved feelings, and the reputation of an entire family. As more days pass with no clear official breakdown of what really took place inside those walls, the speculation keeps building. Everyone seems to have a theory, from people who say this was payback for King allegedly showing off behind bars, to those who think he walked into a trap that was carefully set long before he arrived. The only constant is the sense that something has shifted forever, not just for him, but for the entire Harris name. The once confident, camera-ready family now looks in the eyes of many viewers like a dynasty standing on a cracked foundation, trying to decide what to protect first, their son, their truth, or their public image.
By now, the whole situation feels less like a single incident and more like a pressure cooker that's been building for years and finally started to leak. People who have followed the family from day one are saying they can trace the cracks in a straight line, from early reality show episodes to the latest rumors coming out of that Georgia facility. Even the way fans talk has changed. It used to be jokes and memes about a wild, mouthy teenager. Now, the tone is heavier. Even when people are angry or judgmental, there's this undercurrent of fear. Like everyone knows the story is one bad update away from crossing a line nobody can walk back from. Among the loudest voices are the ones asking why so many people watched warning signs in real time and still treated everything like entertainment. Clips of King arguing with staff at events, lives where he sounded restless and reckless, interviews where T admitted he saw himself in his son's stubbornness, all of that was out there. But instead of serious conversations, the main response was likes, jokes, and viral sound bites. Now, those same moments are being slowed down, rewatched, and analyzed like crime scene footage, with strangers writing long essays about parenting, trauma, and the price of performing toughness. In commentary circles, a new layer has been added to the debate. What does accountability even look like in a story this tangled? Some voices say the focus should be strictly on King's choices, arguing that he's old enough to understand consequences, that he spent too long trying to prove he was built for a life nobody forced on him. Others push back, saying it's impossible to ignore the way he was shaped by cameras, expectations, and a never-ending audience waiting for him to either rise above the drama or collapse under it. They argue that when your childhood becomes content, your mistakes stop feeling like small private lessons and start feeling like public performances you have to top. Then there is the lingering question of that supposed deal. The phrase about T and Tiny being asked to turn themselves in has taken on a mythic quality. Some hear it as a symbol, an expression of deep frustration from people who feel that powerful figures skate past consequences while everyone else pays in full. Others insist that even suggesting something like that is dangerous because it blurs the line between legal process and emotional revenge. The lawyer who mentions it keeps stressing that he's sharing his perspective on what was brought to him, not issuing an official notice. But once an idea like that lands in the public space, it develops a life of its own, feeding endless theories about who really holds power in this story. Inside the fan base, people are already scripting out possible endings in their heads. One group imagines a redemption arc, where King survives, steps away from the cameras, and uses this as a wake-up call to rebuild his life away from all the noise. They write posts saying they hope he gets therapy, protection, and a chance to be seen as more than a headline. Another group sees a darker path, convinced that even if he makes it through, the anger, resentment, and attention will keep circling back. They worry the system itself is stacked so heavily that survival doesn't guarantee freedom, just a different kind of cage. Meanwhile, the family's every movement is being watched in a way that borders on surreal. If T goes live and plays music without saying a word, people flood the chat asking, "How's King? Are the rumors true? Why won't you address it?" If Tiny posts a throwback picture or a vague quote, comments instantly interpret it as a hidden message about their son's condition, her marriage, or the supposed behind-the-scenes war room. Even when they say nothing, the silence becomes a story. Some fans defend their right to process things privately, reminding everyone that behind the stage persona, they are parents terrified
for their child. Others argue that once you invite the world into your home through TV and social media, you don't get to ask for privacy when things go wrong. Off to the side of all this, there are quieter voices telling their own stories, using the Harris situation as a mirror. Former inmates talk about what it feels like to be targeted over something you said months ago, or a misunderstanding that spiraled out of control. Parents talk about watching their kids drift toward dangerous circles while feeling helpless, because every attempt to lay down rules gets labeled as controlling or uncool. Young viewers talk about how easy it is to get caught up in proving you're not soft, even when deep down you know the risk is not worth it. None of these stories can fix what's happening, but they show just how many people see parts of themselves in this mess. And the rumors from inside keep shifting, never settling long enough for anyone to feel sure of what's actually happening.
One day there's a post claiming King is stable and under close monitoring. The next, there's a tweet saying his condition is still fragile and tensions in the unit are higher than ever. Officials stay mostly quiet, releasing just enough generic language about incidents and investigations to say they've spoken, without really confirming or denying the wild descriptions being passed around. That gap between official statements and online storytelling is where the most dramatic claims grow, because no one can fully prove or disprove them yet. Still, even in the middle of all this chaos, some observers say there's a thin thread of possibility if the right choices are made. They talk about how crises have a way of forcing people to confront truths they've avoided for years. Maybe, they say, this will push the family to deal with old wounds instead of covering them with jokes and edited scenes. Maybe it will encourage other families watching to check in on their own kids, to pay attention when they start leaning too hard into an image that doesn't match who they really are. It's a fragile kind of hope, shaky and small compared to the size of the fear, but it's there in the way some people comment, "I just hope he gets another chance to figure himself out." At the same time, nobody pretending to be honest about the situation can ignore how heavy the fear still feels. The talk about contraband, snitch rumors, grudges, and silent power games hasn't gone away. If anything, it has become part of the story's spine. The idea that a young man could be caught in the middle of so many overlapping storms, personal ego, family history, public opinion, prison politics, is what makes this saga feel so overwhelming. It's not just one wrong step, it's 100 small steps taken in front of an audience, piling up until there's no easy way back. As viewers scroll past clip after clip, they are left juggling conflicting emotions. Anger at the choices made. Sympathy for a family that might lose more than they ever imagined. Frustration at a system that seems to let violence brew until it spills over. And somewhere under all of that, a quiet unease about how quickly a story like this can become content, chopped into pieces, remixed and monetized while a real person lies in a hospital bed or a cell dealing with pain that no edit can soften. Whatever the truth behind each rumor, one thing is clear from the way people keep talking about it: the Harris family will never be seen the same way again. The polished image of a lively, sometimes chaotic, but ultimately unbreakable household has been replaced in the public mind by something more fragile and complicated. A dynasty that once looked untouchable now feels exposed, standing at a crossroads with too many eyes watching and too many questions hanging in the air. And as more details, claims, and reactions spill out hour by hour, the only certainty is that the emotional cost of this moment will echo far beyond any headline or hashtag. So as it stands now, we're looking at a story that feels less like simple gossip and more like a warning shot about fame, pride, and how fast things can spin out once real walls and real bars get involved. You've heard the claims, the rumors, the alleged deals, the whispers about cameras cutting off, and a family that once lived in front of the lights, now fighting shadows they can't fully control. But remember, everything we've talked about tonight is coming from online reports, insiders, and commentary. None of us were inside that unit, none of us were in those private calls, so we can't say for sure what is fact and what is just the internet building its own script around a very real fear. What we can say is this: behind every clip, every repost, every dramatic quote, there is a young man whose future is hanging in the balance, and a family that looks more divided and exhausted than ever. Is King Harris being used as a pawn in a bigger game? Or is this simply the painful result of choices made under too many eyes? Is that alleged turn yourselves in line just one lawyer's dramatic way of demanding accountability, or a glimpse into a pressure play we're not supposed to see? And most importantly, is there still time for a real human turnaround here? Or are we watching a dynasty fall apart in slow motion? Now I want to hear from you. What do you think is really going on behind those walls? Do you feel like King is paying for his own actions, his parents' history, or a mix of everything? Drop your thoughts in the comments, be honest but respectful. If you want deeper breakdowns of stories like this, make sure you hit like, tap subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next update as this saga unfolds.